Joe Pardavila, and this is the Forbes Books Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to pop on another episode, wherever or whenever you are listening. So I'm currently sitting in the studios of Advantage Forbes Books in downtown Charleston, South Carolina. The Holy City is known for its picturesque beaches, historical landmarks, amazing food, and beautiful weather. But until recently, it never had the type of social club you'd find in other cities like New York, Miami, or Boston. That changed a few months ago when The Wanderer opened its doors. It's the first private social club in downtown Charleston, complete with an event space, swimming pool, restaurant, sports bar, fitness center, wellness bar, co-working spaces, and more. Today, I'm joined by The Wanderer's founder and general partner, Beau Burns. Beau, thanks for stopping in today. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, and I'm very excited to talk to you because coming from New York City, I'm very familiar with a social club aspect, famously the Soho House and several others in New York City where urban dwellers can find a place where it's not a country club. They don't have to go in the middle of nowhere. It's centrally located. So what inspired you to put something like that in a city like Charleston?
Great question. I saw a number of different voids I felt we could strive to fill. Those voids continue to grow with things like the pandemic, and they continue to exacerbate the other voids we had already kind of identified in the market. So we're trying to be that space in a large way. We're trying to offer most of the things that the average adult is doing in a given day. You need a place to work unless you're comfortable working out of your home. Pandemic changed that for sure. You are looking for a place to be able to get some exercise or do something for your overall well-being. And then finally the social. And after COVID, I'd say that's probably on the highest side of priorities.
Awesome. All right, we'll get into what the actual Wanderer is. But first I want to ask you, what prepared you to build the Wanderer? Because this is a pretty expansive project. You kind of did broad strokes there, but there's a lot going on there. So what in your life prepared you to be like, I want to build a social club in one of the most popular cities? It's always said that rated the number one city in America to live in. What led you to this?
What led me to this was I worked almost 10 years exactly in corporate finance right out of college, and I was a finance major, so it fit the mold. But I just eventually hit a brick wall. In 2014, my 30th birthday, I got back from a trip and I thought, I just can't sit behind this desk and work this job anymore. Money's great, but that's about all that was keeping me there. So in late 2014 on New Year's Eve, I decided to put my 2 weeks notice in and leave the bank. And about a month later, I left the country for about a year-long solo trip around the world.
Wow.
To clear my head and start thinking about what I wanted to do with the next chapter of my life. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't about the money first and foremost. It would have some purpose and meaning, and ideally allow me to create impact here in my community. And during that trip, I had some things happen that really even further opened my eyes. And by the time I got back, I knew a pretty good idea of what I wanted to start focusing on as far as this model goes. I wanted to build a space that would help me bring people together and do more than the events I'd been doing on the side while I was working in finance, because I did that purely for the enjoyment, not for any sort of money. And I wanted it to be more than just events. I wanted it to be something that was every day and offered balance and connection and community,
And what was it about your finance job? Because that is more of it's not an entrepreneurial venture. You're part of a company. So what was it about being an entrepreneur that was more enticing to you than sitting behind a desk and being part of a big company which you had very little control over the day-to-day?
Sure. I was starting to get entrepreneurial after 2-3 years out of college when I was starting my corporate finance career, but it was more just on events. I get bored pretty easy, and I'm constantly looking for the new and better thing that's going to be more experience driven. Love to travel, love events and things that, again, bring people together. So I started getting some experience in events, and that led to more of a focus on health and wellness. And between those two focuses, kind of eventually spawned the Wanderer.
Wow. And what was it, because I mentioned Soho House earlier, was there a particular model you were like, yeah, we need one of these in Charleston? Because we're a copycat society, so it was like, oh, I want to do that, but do it better. So was there one location around the world, maybe during your travels, you're like, I need to build one of these in my hometown?
No. In fact, we found some somewhat comparable or what we would call comps, but they're still not apples to apples, because the ones we found are almost entirely indoors. They're in larger markets like the New York and Boston, D.C., L.A., Miami markets. Charleston's obviously more of like a C than an A. And I wanted it to be outdoors. I wanted it to be more about quality of life than just giving you functional benefit to consolidate all the things you're doing in a given day under one roof. It needed to be a club in my mind because it gives us the ability to have an application process and say, why do you want to join? How do you plan on using the space? How do you plan on adding value to the community that we're building before the business, is what I typically say. And if you're not understanding what we're trying to create and you think it's a Vegas-style pool club and you're trying to party and pop bottles, look at me, you're not a good fit. You're not going to add value. You're, in fact, going to detract from what we're trying to create. So it's probably the easiest example to say that, as a club, it gives us that ability to keep a like-minded demo unchanged and almost create a new perspective, or at least the ability for people to kind of shift perspective more towards the things that actually matter.
It's funny, you had said in a previous interview, our core mission is to help our members achieve a balanced lifestyle through a peaceful one-stop location. A byproduct will be providing a place for people to connect, share experiences, and build a stronger sense of community. It seems like that is sort of your mission statement here, just that you want to build a community.
I do. I think through community, anything is more easily achievable, and there's not a lot that isn't, because working together, you kind of motivate each other inherently. And if you're all part of the same cause, it's exciting to want to put more into helping achieve that mission. When you're by yourself, there's advantages to that too. But if everybody's joining initially for some of the same purpose that we've created this for, I think there's some real potential that we can make happen.
And speaking of we talked about the sort of the woo-woo part of it, but let's talk about the structural. I mean, 50,000 square feet.
Yeah, it's not 50,000 square feet of actual buildings and indoor conditioned space, but it's about a near 2-acre campus. Again, we wanted convenience to be a huge part of this. So we definitely couldn't have done this at the same pricing in the heart of downtown. We're downtown, but we're not in what most people think of as downtown. So it's 50,000 square feet of usable space to
It's still pretty big.
Work and exercise and socialize and do all kinds of stuff.
Wow. And why that location? Why obviously you needed more space because you can that Lower Peninsula you don't have that much available, so you got to go a little upper. So what was about that little area that was like, this is it?
Well, we wanted it to be downtown, so it'd be central, convenient, easy to access, so it could cater to more people. We wanted it to be in the part of downtown that was affordable enough to get enough open acreage and be able to build something like this design, because this design is not really meant to align with the Charleston design and aesthetics.
Right.
In fact,
it doesn't look like a Charleston single family home.
It's I don't want you to feel like you're still in Charleston from the second you walk through the door. And I think there's a lot of benefit with that, with the more relaxing vacation aesthetic we've created. So if you're more relaxed, you can get a little bit more clarity. You can get to a more de-stressed, just happier state, and you have more to give everybody while you're there. The part of town we're in allows you to do a lot that we could not do, to answer the question simply.
Wow. And so there's a junior Olympic sized pool there, right? You got a restaurant, sports bar, fitness center, wellness bar. I know community is a big part of it, but you're also offering a lot of other things for people to just want to show up and have a drink or something, right? Yeah,
and I look at it as we're trying to offer all these things to cater to the largest group of people so that it can appeal ideally to just about anybody, as long as it's not an hour away. But even if it is, by the time you get there, the goal, if you can use it for work and fitness and social, you don't have to spend time driving to your gym, then back to your office, or from your office to the gym, then out for meals or social, and then home. By the time you get home at the end of the day, you're not so exhausted. The stress, you get that time back in your life.
What does the average wonder, what do you see as the average wonder doing when they come there? I mean, are they there for half an hour, a couple hours? Like, what's it look like to you in your brain?
Sure, great question. It's all across the board. We have people joining for all different reasons, but we feel the most benefit is achieved if you're coming there in the morning and you're getting a workout in, you're doing one of our fitness classes, or you're maybe swimming laps in the pool, and then you get showered, changed, and you start your workday on site, whether you're working by yourself or you're giving a presentation in one of the conference rooms. Come lunch, you stay on site, you can have lunch, you can have a business lunch. After that, you can continue to work throughout the day, and then when you're ready to close your laptop, come 5 p.m. per se, you can go upstairs and enjoy happy hour and start enjoying the social. We're having events almost every day to be able to more easily connect the members with each other and with non-members that are coming in to try it out to see if they want to join. And it's really meant to be a community, but a community within a community that does work hand in hand. Because if we can focus on things like certain charities and causes that our greater Charleston community is really wanting to get more support for, and sustainability and being leaders in ways that we feel will help achieve a greater good. Again, focusing on the things that truly matter and are only going to continue to matter more in the future.
And what does the average wanderer look like? Let's use corporate terms like, what are the demographics? What's all that stuff? What is all that about with one of your members?
Sure. It's about as diverse as I could have ever hoped for.
Oh, great.
Far more than I ever thought this early on, since we've only been open for about 3 months. We have people that have joined in their mid to late 20s all the way up into a couple or two in their early 70s. We've got people that have just moved here from New York and Boston because of COVID.
Yeah.
They're brand new to the area. We've got people that have been born and raised in Charleston, never left their whole life. As far as industry, it's tech, real estate, finance, creative. It's all across the board. So that's the one thing I feel you really cannot control. You hope that you get a diverse group, and that's super key, especially with the nature of our project. But it's turned out even better than we thought.
That's awesome. Well, let's go back to the beginning of The Wanderer, because I'm curious. This has been like a project 3 or 4 years in the making for you. What are the challenges about building this kind of venue in a city that's not familiar with a social club,
a city that's got the oldest historic preservation district in the country.
Yeah, and they're like really touching up things. They want to keep things as it is.
Conformity.
Yeah, so what was that like, I guess, initial sell to either investors or just the city in general, the populace, about this is good for the city and for the people here?
I would initially answer it by saying hard to put in words, because I had zero development and construction experience prior to this project. I would not recommend someone jumping into something like this for their first trial test run of sorts. There were no true comps, like I said, so we don't have other models, even in other markets, anywhere that we could say, look at this is doing well, and here's why. So ours is subsequently probably going to do pretty well too. Again, there are Soho House and other similar type comps, but we don't have a hotel like Soho House does at virtually all their locations. We're not in a New York market. We're in the opposite. I had to get people to understand how we were going to fill these voids and how big these voids were at the time, and to show that they're only going to increase. And we're selling a convenience and a quality of life product. I don't even like calling it a product, though. It is a lifestyle. We're selling things that whether people know they want them or not, they're going to realize it when they come in and they start meeting other locals, which is also hard to find. Just a place in this town that's predominantly locals. We're such a tourist-driven market. And then just simple things. We have a pool, and we have cabanas, and we have bottle service, but again, it's meant to be classy. There's no sparkler presentation, Vegas style.
No popping bottles?
It's not meant to be that type of space, CNBC and look at me. There's no presentation on the actual, bringing out bottles and whatnot. Yeah. But I think just the pool alone is a great example of filling a void from a functional aspect, because you can't legally drink on any of the beaches in Charleston. If you get caught, it's over $1,000 ticket, and they do enforce it. I think I'm the only friend in my group that hasn't gotten that ticket. The traffic to get out to the beaches, unless you live out there, has always been pretty tough. It's only getting worse. It's part of why I don't go out there anymore. And then the parking once you're out there, none of this is getting better. It's only getting worse. Yeah. Again, convenience. City's only continuing to grow, even more so from COVID, which is a good thing. But as far as having a place that's a one-stop shop, instead of going from your house to your office, then out to lunch, then back to the office, then to the gym, then maybe somewhere else for social, then home, no wonder you're so exhausted. Yeah. So I think that we will trend in higher demand as these things continue to move in the same direction they've been moving for a long time.
Let's talk about challenges. COVID, we've kind of glanced on here. So talk to me about that initially. When you find out about the pandemic, you're already probably a few years into the project. Were you thinking, oh my God, it's all over for me now? I'm not going to be able to fulfill my dream?
I'm not even quite sure what I was thinking about most at the time, because when something like that happens, and none of us have ever been through anything we can even try to compare it to, oftentimes, I don't know if you know how to think. You just kind of start having a little bit of manic whatever. But I would say that I'd been through a good bit with this project, a good bit more than I even, like I said earlier, anticipated when I started it. I had already started to fortunately develop a new perspective that things are happening, and when they happen, sometimes in the moment and they're not great, you might curse them, but it might be a month later, it might be a day later that you realize something happened that's, call it collateral beauty, or something that is not negative. In fact, it might make you look at that event as something that was incredibly great. It was a blessing. So it made me start to think maybe COVID is not going to be, I mean, when it first truly started to get real, yeah, the nervousness, the anxiety was definitely in, it was in a high level mode. But I just started thinking there's got to be a reason for this. I'm not going to say I believe in there's a reason for everything, even though in a way I do. But I think that it's all about perspective, and it's all about if you want to let whatever's happening bring you down. If you want to think, oh man, this is going to be awful, that's going to probably work against you, because if you start believing that and thinking about it more and more, you're likely going to manifest more of that, because you're going to get yourself into this state of thinking that all these things are also bad because this is already going against me. So it's like when it rains, it pours. Yeah. And I started to think more and more about what this might create and what we're trying to not solve, but address to create that higher quality of life. And I started thinking, well, if we're being told to socially distance, but our brand and our community and our project is about bringing people together and building a community, great. When this thing subsides, there's going to be more demand to connect and see our loved ones again than ever before in the history of our lives. Awesome. We just got to make sure this doesn't last 3 years. And wellness, we're trying to do whatever we can to build our immunity and to get healthier so we don't contract this thing. Or if we get it, we have a much better chance of fighting it and getting through it so it doesn't take our lives. So we're starting to think more holistically and not just taking a med. We didn't have a vaccine for quite a while. We didn't have any other means to help prevent getting this than the things that we used to do long before modern medicine. And I'm not going to say I don't believe in modern medicine, because I do. I'm kind of the black sheep of my family because most of my family is in medicine. But I think there's reasons that modern medicine makes sense, especially for things like trauma. And then there are things that we can naturally help ourselves and boost our immunity and let it do what it's intended to do, but we don't allow it to get to that optimum state. So that's a big part of this project. We haven't started to really unravel a whole lot of programming around that, but it's an educational piece that will be at the core of this brand in a short period of time, and it'll stay there forever, because if you can learn more about how to help yourself, then you're empowering yourself and you're allowing yourself to offer more to others. And we would like to think that we're creating new leaders for tomorrow with this brand in a way, and at least educating people on ways they can help themselves. Other than the health and wellness, the community, I mean, we're predominantly outside. We've got a lot of covered space. We've got a good bit of indoor conditioned space, but it's meant to push you outside to spend more time out in the open campus that we've got. We've got lush bamboo and tropical flora fauna, so it's meant to make you feel like you're on vacation. You can relax, you can decompress, you can get a better balance. And when COVID really started getting rocking and rolling, all these indoor studios, fitness studios, they started coming to us saying we're losing our members left and right because none of them want to come inside to our spin classes and yoga and bar Pilates, etc. So they said, can we come to do our classes at your outdoor event space? We thought about it for a minute and we said, you know what? Yeah, we'll do a class for a class trade. We're not open yet, but if you want to offer your classes to our members, we won't charge you and we'll let you come in and do your classes at ours. Wow. And it allowed us to start building a relationship with the greater community because we're bringing in all these different other businesses outside of ours that are not private clubs. They're not affiliates. They're not, strategic partners. In fact, they're future competitors because we offer spin, we do yoga, we do HIIT classes and all kinds of stuff like that. But it allowed us to do not only that, but help the greater community in a small way. But that's what we're trying to achieve just as much as everything else I'm talking about. We don't want to be this private community that's down the road away from everything else intentionally for any other reason but the reasons I mentioned earlier. Being where we are allows us to price the membership much more affordably and have an outdoor campus feel and allow you to feel like when you're there, you're probably there for the day. I mean, if you're not feeling it, it's not a place you can walk out to the sidewalk and walk down the street to the next place. There is no next place. You're there for the day. It's a retreat. You're still downtown. It's still convenient, but it's, a couple miles off the strip. So
that's great. And you're probably no stranger to this, but you probably noticed that we're in a political society, very polarized, a lot of opinions, a lot of people.
Indeed.
How are you going to, or maybe how do you see the dynamic shaping up in terms of the members of the Wonder? And I bring this up with a lot of these social clubs, whether it's a golf club or something, like if you go to a golf club, it's 9 out of 10 times it's going to be an older white Republican, you know what I mean? It's there is a sect, but you, as you've mentioned, it's a melting pot. So how do you see all of these, whether it's political inclinations, religious inclinations, how do you see that all stirring up there at the Wanderer?
I would say two things. Number one, we're not currently planning, and I don't know that we ever would want to bring politics in or even religion in, because how do you
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, how do you? No kidding. How do you even do that if everybody's got a different belief and opinion to a certain extent? So it's better, I think, to focus on the things that we all want: balance, community, things that allow us to connect with more good people and build genuine relationships and help each other and just achieve or get to a better quality of life through that. I've kind of always tried to focus on other things if I felt like something on this other side was a concern. Don't try not to bring it up or let it come in. If it comes in, it's not going to come in because we're bringing it in.
Right.
And we're trying to be hyper-focused on making sure no one ever thinks that we're instilling or even attempting to instill any beliefs, opinions. This isn't a cult. I don't even really like calling it a club, but because of the stereotype. But in the best way I can try to put it, I think it's more about all the other things most clubs are not saying is their priority. Or if they are, I think it's more of a functional benefit focus, and that's a much smaller thing over here on the side. If you've got diversity, it's a lot easier to achieve as well. I think the experiences will naturally unfold with the conversation that's meant to be there instead of separating people and from politics and religion. So,
all right, you've been into this journey for 4 or 5 years now. Looking back, are you like, man, there's this I would have, taking out the pandemic stuff, but is there something you like, you wish you had a do-over? Like, man, I wish I did this differently or anything like that. Have you sort of started doing, like, what do you call that, the post-mortem of the Wonder? Are there certain things that maybe like an entrepreneur listening and be like, oh man, I got to look out for that?
I used to do that in terms of I wish I would have done this or this differently, or I wish I wouldn't have done this and would have done this. I look at things differently now, like I said, and anything that created a serious challenge, roadblock, obstacle, I'm grateful for, more so than everything else, because if it weren't for that, I don't think that I would feel as excited as I am that we finally got this thing built and open. The harder things are, the more you appreciate what manifests in the end. So if it was a cakewalk, I might take it for granted, which I never thought it would be.
Yeah.
But
doesn't sound like it.
No. But it's funny that most of the things that were the biggest challenges and the biggest, oh man, I can't believe this has happened at the time, ended up becoming catalysts for the greatest things that happened to this project. And I would be lying if I said I didn't believe those were just anything more than a coincidence. I think perspective drives it all.
I know you don't want to what if the Wanderer experience, but do you ever what if sliding doors, like if you had never taken that 1 year sabbatical, like where your life would be today? Like if you decided to just head down, grind it out, I'm just going to do this, I'm making good money, life's good. Do you ever do that? What if that?
I did it multiple years before, because it was almost at the 10th year that I was, that I made the decision to leave the banking world and the corporate world. The previous 4 or 5, maybe even 6 years prior to, I had already realized that I wanted to get out because, yeah, the money's great, but that was it. I was showing up, punching a clock, sitting behind a desk and losing my soul. That's no way to live life. I don't care how much money you make. I was making more money to enjoy the 2 days a week off more. That's not purpose. So I was ready. And when I decided to leave, I knew that I wanted to get out of my bubble. I wanted to get out of Charleston. I wanted to clear my head, and I wanted to have something shake things up. So when I came back, I at least had a better idea of generally what I wanted to focus on. Maybe not the exact idea, but I was fortunate enough to have something happen during the trip that spurred that specific idea to actually come about, or for me to be able to realize it. So by the time I got back, I was even much further down the road than I'd hoped I'd be. I think just solo travel and going to places in the Eastern world instead of just the Caribbean and Europe, challenging your perspective, being in places that aren't necessarily comfortable, does something to you. You know, you come home and you really have a stronger sense of gratitude. It's like, what was I complaining about again? These people I'm meeting along the way in the poorest or most impoverished nations on earth, India and parts of Africa and South America, I'm seeing them smile bigger and more genuinely than I see most people here on a daily basis, and they have nothing. So, not trying to preach here, but again, perspective. You know, they don't know what they are missing, but it doesn't matter. They focus on what matters. That's enough, and that makes them so happy, and it drives their quality of life to be a hell of a lot stronger than ours. They don't have an opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
When ironically more opportunity in their country than any other on earth.
Wow. You know, it's funny. When I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, I always get this where if they don't have the financial background, they struggle on that side of it. Like they're all about vision and execution and all that. But you, even though the financial part of your life sucked the life out of you, you did have that base level.
Incredibly grateful for it.
Right?
Yeah. Incredibly grateful that I even spent 5 or 6 years more than I wanted to spend there, because what I learned in those additional 5 or 6 years on the lending side allowed me to finally get the debt approved that completed most of the financing for the project. So I wouldn't have built this thing if I wouldn't have been able to obviously get the rest of the capital, even though it took me over 80 different lenders to find one that would say yes.
Wow.
I mean, no comps, first-time developer. You want to give me a loan?
I don't think I have enough because that 50,000 square feet looks like it's. I don't think I could cover you there. All right, so you did it. How do you feel like now that it actually exists?
As good, if not better, than I thought I ever could. And I think now we're really just beginning the fun part, because I look at this as the true starting point where we built the space, but the brand becomes the people that join and how they choose to use this. It's what people are going to think about this. So I look forward to seeing it evolve organically, and looking forward to seeing how they choose to show us what this brand can ultimately become.
Last question. Why the Wanderer? Why that name?
The word wanderer, and a lot of people actually mispronounce it wanderer because that's more familiar.
Yeah.
You've probably used that word quite a bit, or at least heard it. You've probably never even known the word wanderer is in the English dictionary, but the word wanderer by definition is an independent thinker, someone who seeks out new experiences and things that speak to quality of life and does not conform to societal norms simply to fit in. And our place is not meant to be conformity. It's the opposite. We, again, don't want you to feel like you're walking into another version of Charleston. Nothing against Charleston. I love this town, but I think there's a lot of benefit if you go into a place that is very new and different. It starts to shake things up in your mind, and you're more open to things, and there's the most benefit once that starts to transpire.
When you described the Wanderer, it almost seemed like you described yourself there.
Well, I think I'm an independent thinker for sure. I get bored very easy. This project is probably the greatest example of that, and we are trying to seek out more of those open-minded, independent thinkers, creatives, entrepreneurial people here in the community.
That's awesome.
Eventually grow it maybe across the rest of the country.
Sweet. His name is Beau Burns. He's the founder and managing director of The Wanderer. Beau, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much again for having me.
You're very welcome. If you'd like to find out more about The Wanderer, check out thewanderer.com and follow them on the gram at TheWandererCHS. And that's it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a second, subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.